Sometimes the kindest people enter our lives when we least expect it. For a single mother struggling to hold everything together, one late-night ride home from a stranger became the beginning of a story she would never forget. A story about trust, fate, and the kind of love that doesn't ask for anything in return. Before we begin, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Grateful Tales for more heartwarming and emotional real-life stories. Tell us in the comments, and where are you watching from today? It was a cold, rainy evening, and Emma's shift at the small diner had gone longer than usual. The neon sign outside flickered in the puddles as she locked the door and adjusted her worn-out jacket. The last bus had already gone, and her phone showed only 5% battery. Her 7-year-old daughter Grace was waiting at home with a neighbor, and every passing minute made her chest tighten with worry. The parking lot was empty, except for a few cars and the sound of rain tapping against the metal roof. She clutched her purse close and whispered a small prayer for a safe way home. A few minutes later, headlights approached slowly. A dark blue pickup truck rolled up beside her, and a man lowered the window. "Need a ride somewhere?" he asked gently, his voice calm but respectful. His name was Daniel, a construction worker who had just finished his own late shift. Emma hesitated, her heart pounding. She didn't like trusting strangers, but something about his steady tone and kind eyes felt safe. After a moment of silence, she nodded cautiously and got in, making sure to send her location to her neighbor just in case. The drive was quiet at first. Rain drummed on the windshield as they passed empty streets. Daniel didn't ask personal questions. He just made small talk about work, weather, and how he'd once been stranded himself on a night like this. When they reached her small apartment building, Emma thanked him and offered to pay for gas, but he smiled and shook his head. "Just get home safe," he said, then drove off into the misty night. She stood by the doorway for a moment, watching his taillights fade. Something about that kindness lingered in her heart longer than she expected. Weeks passed, and Emma went back to her routine: work, school runs, bills, and sleepless nights. But sometimes when she saw a blue pickup drive by, she found herself smiling. Then one evening, the same truck pulled up to the diner again. Daniel stepped out, this time holding a small paper bag. "Thought you might need dinner too," he said shyly. Inside were 2 sandwiches and a little chocolate bar. Emma laughed softly, the first real laugh she'd had in a while. From that night on, Daniel became a quiet presence in her life, picking her up when her shift ended, checking on her car battery, and sometimes just sharing coffee before dawn. Emma tried to keep her distance at first. Life had made her cautious, too many broken promises and people who left. But Daniel never asked for anything. He talked about his late wife, about learning to cook for himself, and about how he'd stopped believing in second chances until now. Grace liked him too. She'd wave from the window whenever his truck pulled up, her little face lighting up as he handed her small treats, coloring books, crayons, or a cupcake from the diner. Months rolled by quietly, and Emma realized how much lighter her days felt. Her rent was still late, her job was still hard, but somehow she didn't feel so alone anymore. Daniel had become part of their rhythm, not by force, but by kindness. And yet, he kept his distance, never crossing the invisible line of her comfort, until one evening near the start of spring when everything changed. That night, the diner was busy, filled with chatter and clinking dishes. Daniel sat at his usual corner booth, waiting for her shift to end. When the clock hit midnight, Emma wiped her hands, untied her apron, and walked out to find him standing outside with a small, nervous smile. "Can we take a drive?" he asked softly. The air was cool, the sky clear. She nodded. They drove to a quiet hill overlooking the town, the same place he'd taken her to watch fireworks once with Grace. He stopped the engine, reached into his jacket pocket, and took out a small box. Emma froze. Her breath caught as he opened it. Inside was a simple silver ring gleaming under the truck's interior light. "You don't owe me anything," he began. "I just wanted you to know that if you ever want someone to stand beside you, not to save you, not to fix you, but to walk with you, I'd be honored." Tears welled in her eyes, but she smiled through them. She wasn't ready to answer then, but for the first time in years, she didn't feel scared of the future. The next few weeks felt different. Daniel didn't bring up the ring again. He still picked her up after work, still helped Grace with her school project, still stayed the same steady presence. One afternoon, as they sat outside Emma's apartment watching Grace draw on the sidewalk with chalk, Emma quietly reached into her pocket and slipped the ring onto her finger. Daniel noticed but said nothing. He just smiled, a look of peace and quiet joy passing between them. Sometimes love doesn't arrive in grand gestures or perfect timing. Sometimes it comes softly, in a ride offered on a rainy night, in a sandwich shared after a long shift, or in the patience of someone who waits without asking for more. For Emma and Daniel, it wasn't about rescuing each other. It was about learning that life gives you people who make the struggle worth living. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to share it with someone who believes in second chances. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Grateful Tales for more emotional, inspiring, and heartwarming stories that remind us all of the power of kindness and love.